What? Okay. I hope everybody has enjoying Hanukkah. Okay. Trying to breathe. I was rushing. Okay, so we are. That is. Thank you for the reminder. Why don't you tell us your mom's Hebrew name? Your father's name, Hebrew name. Sherman ben Louis Elazar. Today's our study, our class today is dedicated in his memory, and we thank you for your donation, and hopefully it's going to be a merit for Aliyat Neshama. Today we have a packed chapter. We're in chapter 44, Mem Daled, in Yechezkel. Okay. So, remember what happened last time. Last time, in the previous chapter, Yechezkel has this tour, right? He gets a tour, a virtual tour in Beit HaMikdash, the future Beit HaMikdash. And now the tour is going to go into, and is going to learn, and he learned about the inauguration of Beit HaMikdash. And in this chapter, Mem Dalet 44, and in this chapter it continues into the courtyard of the Beit HaMikdash, and let's see what we learn. Okay, so I'm gonna let's take a look at the first 3 psukim, okay? Verses Aleph Bet Gimel. Vayashev oti derech sha'ar HaMikdash HaChitzon hapone kadim vehu sagur. Vayomer elai. This is, by the way, very significant that it's closed. We'll talk about it in a second. Vayomer elai Adonai, השער הזה סגור יהיה לא ייפתח, ואיש לא יבוא בו, כי אדוני אלוהי ישראל בא בו, והיה סגור. את נשיא הוא ישב בו לאכול לחם לפני אדוני, מדרך אולם השער יבוא, ומדרכו יצא. Let's do it in English. Then he returned me towards the outer gate of the sanctuary, which faces eastward, and it was closed. Hashem said to me, this gate shall be closed, it shall not be opened. No man may come through it, because Hashem, the God of Israel, has come through it. It shall be closed. It is for the prince, right? He called the Nasi, the prince. He is the leader, so he will sit within it to eat food before God. He shall come in by way of the hall of the eastern gate, and by that way he shall depart. Okay, let's understand what's going on. So Yechezkel is brought through the inner courtyard into the eastern gate. Why this is significant? Because the Shekhinah, if you remember from last week, the Shekhinah came from the eastern gate. Right? It says, "Uchvod Adonai ba el habayit, dar derech sha'ar asher panav derech hakadim." Kadim is always the eastern side, right? The first time we see that term ruach kadim, eastern wind, is what? The story with Moshe. Vashem nihagu ruach kadim, that's the split of the Red Sea. Okay, later on we have another ruach kadim, that's the Slav. The quail comes also with eastern wind. Okay, so kadim is always east. Like yam, the sea is west. Why? Well, if you look at it, because right, look at the map, right? Okay, good. So he comes through the eastern gate, and Yechezkel sees that the gate is closed. And God says that this is something that is characteristic of that gate. In other words, this gate is going to remain closed. Why? Because that's the gate in which God entered the temple. Now, if you remember last week, we said something very significant. Why was it, at least according to last week, why was it that the temple was destroyed? It's the blurring of the boundaries, right? So now that you have a gate through which that God uses, and therefore it's going to remain closed, no one else is going to use it, that's another step in this idea of putting very clear boundaries. Okay, that's the symbolism. And again, I don't know if that would have been necessary to start with, because God couldn't care less about gates and stuff like that. But because that what led to destruction of the temple, that's blurring, that was this confusion. Oh, I can be buried also in that garden adjacent to the temple, and my palace could be even bigger than the temple, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. Because of that, there's a need to make that distinction, to make that very, very clear. Yes, Hannah.
What about Yashar Ladonai to the king of all?
That's metaphoric. That's a metaphor. And by the way, that's King David. King David doesn't even talk about the temple because he didn't even build it.
Right. It's king.
Okay. Now, so simply we say that the gate is closed because God has entered the temple through that gate, and it's not, I would say in English, mechobadik. It's not worthy, it's not the right thing for people to use the same gate. But perhaps there's another idea here. One of the things that we said last week, and actually in the last couple of weeks, is that God makes that promise. To some extent, that led our tradition to say that that's the reason, one of the reasons why we're talking about the third temple, that this temple is going to last forever, that the Shekhinah is going to be there forever, will never leave. Because the second temple was destroyed, that contribute at least, one of the reasons to say, okay, the second temple is not it's not the same temple that Yechezkel is talking about, among other reasons. Okay. So if the Shekhinah is going to remain in that temple forever and ever, what's the point of leaving the gate open? If you have no intentions of leaving the room, you're not going to open the door. Okay? So that's the symbolism here. And remember, that's what it says many times. V'shachanti betocham leolam, asher eshkon sham betoch bnei Yisrael leolam, forever and ever. Okay, so this is all fine and dandy, but then we have a problem. Because that gate has another use. What is that use? The Nasi is going to eat his meals, lechem, bread, whatever, lifnei Adonai. So the Nasi, just to remind ourselves, we haven't talked about that word in a while, but Yechezkel talks about that word a lot in the beginning of the book. He's using the term Nasi here in the English, the art scroll, it's translated as a prince, because he refrained of using the word melech. If you remember, in the beginning, for Yechezkel, the kings of Judah at that time, before the destruction of the temple, are not worthy to be called kings. For him, they represent the failure. For him, they represent just nothing. They were appointed by the Babylonians, and anyway, they had no real political power. And so Yechezkel, throughout the book, doesn't call the king of Israel a king. He uses that word nasi. Here, art scroll translated as prince. Modern Hebrew is president, is nasi. Okay? But whatever the term is, we understand we're talking about the person in charge. Prime minister, president, prince, I don't care. But Yechezkel makes it as a statement not to use the word melech, king. Okay, fine. That person, whoever you want to call him, that person is gonna come through the hall, approaching the gate. But the gate is going to remain closed. So he's going to have his meals over there, and then he's going to go the same way. He's going to go back. He's going to exit the same way he came, through the other gate, not the eastern gate. Yes.
So he's going to have his meals like in front of the gate, but outside the gate, in like this whole area, like right where the gate is.
Yeah. So this is the inner courtyard, right? He's coming from the hallway, from inside, coming either through the southern, the northern, or the western gate, coming into this area, have his meal over there, and leave the way he comes. That eastern gate is going to remain closed, no matter what. Now, from here, we're going to deal with, this is kind of the first mentioning of the Nasi. From here till the end of the book, we're going to mention the Nasi and his functions and his role many, many times. Okay? So this is kind of, and what's important is the Nasi is not only the political figure, but rather he has also a spiritual role. Okay? The Nasi brings special korbanot, special sacrifices on behalf of the nation. The people have taxes, some sort of a fundraising in order to pay for those korbanot. I don't know what's the price for a bull, but whatever. He has a special residency, okay, like the governor's house or whatever that is, right? Right? And his position is kind of like in some ways similar to the Kohen Gadol, to the high priest. In other words, he is the political figure, but he's also a spiritual leader. And that we're starting to understand that there's, in this future model of leadership, there's this tendency to create a synergy between the political and the spiritual. In other words, Solomon, for example, and all the kings after him, they were the political leaders. They were not, and actually, very often they were confronted by the Nevi'im. And there was this battle between them. Here, and we do, there's separation of checks and balances, whatever. So you have the political, you have the spiritual. But here in this, let's call it utopic model that Yechezkel is talking about, there's a little bit of integration between the roles. And I think what the implication is that we have expectations. We have expectations from the political leaders to be also a moral compass, to set example, to, walk the walk and talk the talk, like, show us like that they are also the spiritual, like on that spiritual level. Because being a leader is not about doing the job only. It's also being in good terms with the big boss. And that's very significant. Yes, Rifki. He's not saying that, but in previous chapters, we did learn that, yes, it's the Davidic dynasty. So the king, the future king, is not, a political leader, but rather, I think the image that we have to have in our mind is of, we talked about that a couple of weeks ago, of a shepherd. And when we talk about the shepherd, we have the image of Abram, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, David, Saul. They were all shepherds. Okay? We use it in our liturgy, on Yom Kippur, כבקרת רועה עדרו מעביר צאנו תחת שבטו. This image of a shepherd. Shepherd takes care of his sheep. That's what we want. We don't want a king that is distant from the people, right? Especially after that, let's call it the trauma of Solomon. Not to mention his descendants, so forget it. Right? We want somebody who's going to be connected to the people, that his interests are going to be the interests of the people. Many years ago, I gave like another class. We analyzed, I don't know, many years ago, whatever. We analyzed, like, that was the Therapist's Outlook series where we talked about modern psychology. We talked about a model of serving leadership. If you don't know what I'm talking about, you can find that in the Beth Jacob YouTube channel. But serving leadership is a leadership that supports the people. It's not, I'm the chief and you're gonna do, that's the old model. I'm here to serve you. Yes, I have the power because you gave me the power. That's the closest to understand is democracy, right? But I'm here to serve you. So in other words, yes, you chose me to have that power, but you're also my boss. Right? This is why we have election. Okay, but introducing such an idea, the times of Yechezkel, is right. But I think this is the model. This is what God is trying to tell us. That's what I want. I want serving leadership. I want people who are going to be like shepherds, taking care of my flock. And for that, they need to have also that spiritual element as well. Because if you're going to do the right thing, that means you're connected to the big boss above. Okay? Okay, let's move on. So from here, he sees the eastern gate that is closed. He's moving to the northern gate of the inner courtyard. And here he hears God's words on a different topic. So let's take a look at the next two psukim, Daled and Hey. ויביאני דרך שער הצפון אל פני הבית, וארא כי מלך כבוד אדוני את בית אדוני, ואפול על פניי. ויאמר אליי, בן אדם, שים לבך וראה בעיניך ובאוזניך שמע את כל אשר אני מדבר אותך, לכל חוקות בית אדוני ולכל תורותיו, ושמת לבך למבוא הבית בכל מוצאי המקדש. Then he brought me towards the northern gate, to the front of the temple building, and behold, I saw that the glory of Hashem filled the house of Hashem. I fell upon my face. Fine. Hashem said to me, Son of man, set your heart and see with your eyes and hear with your ears all that I'm saying to you, about all the laws of the temple of Hashem and all its teachings. Set your heart toward the entrance of the temple and to all the exits of the sanctuary. So this is some sort of a opening, some sort of exposition for laws, mitzvot, that are going to take place in the Mikdash. Yes. Yechezkel doesn't know it's the third temple. We know, in retrospect. So just like the opening that we had when he had all that tour about how the temple is going to look like and all the sizes and the measurements and all this, architect, whatever, it's the same term. Pay attention, close attention to what I'm telling you. Okay? Listen and be intuitive to whatever I tell you. Okay? Now it's going to be a bunch of topics for which God told him pay close attention. So the first one is the Bnei Nechar. Very interestingly, Bnei Nechar, usually we understand that as what? As the non-Jews. And they need those Bnei Nechar. We're going to see in a second that this is not that simple. Those Bnei Nechar need to be removed from the Mikdash. Interestingly. Let's see what's going to happen. I'm going to read verses 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay? Vav through Tet. V'amarta el Mary Beit Israel. That word Mary, we met that, not Mary from the Christmas story. It's a different, right? We met that word many times already. כה אמר אדוני אלוהים, רב לכם מכל תועבותיכם בית ישראל, והביאכם בני נכר ערלי לב וערלי בשר להיות במקדשי לחללו את ביתי בהקריבכם את לחמי חלב אדם, ויפרו את בריתי אל כל תועבותיכם, ולא שמרתם משמרת קודשי ותשימון לשומרי משמרתי במקדשי לכם. Then say to the house of rebellion, that's Mary, right? Mary is a rebellion. To the house of Israel, thus said the Lord Hashem, you have indulged too much in all your abominations, O house of Israel, by bringing in strangers of uncircumcised heart, not uncircumcised, but uncircumcised heart. That's different. And uncircumcised flesh to be in my sanctuary, to defile my temple, when you offer my food, fat and blood, and they have violated my covenant. In addition to all your abominations, you did not safeguard the charge of my holy places. You set guardians of my charge in my sanctuary, those who were for yourselves. Pasuk Tet, I forgot to read that. Let's do first in Hebrew and then English. כה אמר אדוני אלוהים, כל בן נכר וערל לב וערל בשר לא יבוא אל מקדשי, לכל בן נכר אשר בתוך בני ישראל. Thus said the Lord Hashem, any estranged person of uncircumcised heart or uncircumcised flesh shall not enter my sanctuary, and estranged person among the children of Israel. Okay, what's going on over here? So, who are those Bnei Nechal that we're talking about? So one explanation is the simple understanding. And it says, those are uncircumcised. People are not Jewish. And the critique here, you guys let the non-Jews to be in the temple, bring korbanot, And not only that, you gave them positions in the Beit HaMikdash. That's a problem. Yes? Everybody thinks so? I don't think so. I think it's a little bit more complex. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Is it really forbidden for non-Jews to bring korbanot in Beit HaMikdash? Is it? I'm asking you. Very good.
What was the answer?
The answer that is suggested here is that if they follow certain criteria, the non-Jews can bring also korbanot. And Rivki is adding that korbanot are meant to create closeness between us and God, and therefore, okay, it's like tefillah, and therefore what? That's for us. Certain tefillot, yes. But here's the full story, and here's the news. Non-Jews could bring korbanot in Beit HaMikdash. Why not? Yes. I'm going to give you two reasons, or first of all, two proofs. When the Torah, okay, so the Torah talks about the prohibition of bringing a korban with blemish. Okay? So the Torah says, "Umiyad benechar lo takrivu et lechem Elohechem mikol ele, mum bam lo yeratze lachem." Umiyad benechar? It means the Torah says that rule apply to the sacrifices of non-Jews as well. Well, if that rule applies to both Jews and non-Jews, it means that non-Jews can bring sacrifices. That's number one. Meaning, just like you said, if they follow certain criteria, this is one of the criteria, i.e., the korban has to be kosher. That's one proof. Second, when the temple is inaugurated by Shlomo HaMelech, what did he say? He said it was for non-Jews as well. He said it very specifically. V'gam el hanochri asher lo me'amcha Yisraelu uva me'eretz rechoka leman shemecha uva vehitpalel el habayit hazeh. Shlomo HaMelech is very, very clear. This house, the temple, is also for the non-Jews, those who come from a foreign land, those who want to daven, those who want to bring korbanot. This is the place for you. Now you understand what we talked about a couple of weeks ago in this vision of the third temple that Herzl had, that Rav Kook had, of this idea of this academy and a place of worship, global worship for all religions and everything. This is where it comes from. It's not only us. By the way, what is the korban of Hanukkah? Not Hanukkah, I'm sorry, Sukkot. There was no korban Hanukkah because Hanukkah was instituted after Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. No, not the animals, but what we have like something specifically that was in Hanukkah. There was the 70 bulls. What are the 70 bulls? The 70 nations of the world. Yes.
So let's say I'm living at this home Beit HaMikdash, first Beit HaMikdash fully functioning, right? And I decide that I want to bring korban. So like I will get the animal, I will bring it, but I'm not the one who actually does the motion.
Amazing. Good. We're going to discuss that and also the changes from what was to what's supposed to be. Good. Excellent. We'll get there. Okay. So Shlomo HaMelech already emphasizes that also the prayers and the korbanot of non-Jews are going to be heard. But what's the purpose? This is how you sanctify God's name, Bechol Haaretz. You want the news to travel, you want believers, they don't have to be Jewish. Nobody talks about conversion here. But there's this thing that is beyond being Jewish, is adhering to, let's call it the ways of God. Whether it's the 7 Noahide laws, whether it's life of ethics and morality, all that stuff, let's call it the ways of God, whatever that means, okay, for now. If you want to educate the world, then you need to give non-Jews the opportunity to learn that. And you need to give them access. So they can come to Yerushalayim, they can learn. Remember, when people came to Yerushalayim, it's not only to bring korbanot. That was their opportunity also to learn. Because the Kohanim were there. These were the teachers. Okay, so maybe they didn't go into the halachot of muktzeh. I'm just kidding. That was instituted many years later, you know. But the idea of like teaching. Okay. And by the way, Yechezkel is not the only one who talks about that. The famous prophecy of Isaiah. והיה באחרית הימים, נכון יהיה הר בית אדוני בראש ההרים, ונישא מגבעות ונהרו אליו כל הגויים, והלכו עמים רבים ואמרו לכו ונעלה אל הר אדוני ויורנו מדרכיו, ונלכה באורחותיו. And then it's the famous pasuk that everybody knows, כי מציון צאתי תורה ודבר אדוני מירושלים. Where is this coming from? First of all, I know it by heart. Why? Because there's a very, not famous, but there's a piece that was composed by Yasinovsky. He was a chazan, he was a composer, that he wrote in the 20s for what? The opening of the Hebrew University in Yerushalayim. And I sang it, what? Maybe one day. It's a big piece. It's a long piece with a full orchestra and everything. I've done it in a concert a long time ago. Anyway, so you have this prophecy of Isaiah that talks about the end of days, right? So God's house is going to be in the top of the mountain, and all the nations, everybody's going to come there. And they say, what? Lechu v'na'aleh el har Adonai. Let's go to the mount of God, and he'll teach us his laws. We're going to follow them. From Tzion, from Yerushalayim, the Torah, it's not only our Torah. We're talking about, let's call it, the truth shall come. That's not only us. That's everybody. Today, in our terminology, yes. In the Bible, they didn't know this term Mashiach. It was not yet invented. It was invented much later by the rabbis. Yeah. In the Tanach, you're not going to find the word Mashiach. Unless you look at a Chabad Tanach, which anything is possible there. What? Chabad Tanach. Then everything is possible. Just kidding.
What can't we find in the Tanakh? Which one?
Mashiach.
Oh.
Okay. So, according both to Yeshayahu and others, but definitely according also to Yechezkel, non-Jews can come to the temple. And he talks about, though, arlei lev arlei basar. Somebody whose heart is uncircumcised. Well, that could be...
Can be a Jew too. That can be a Jew too.
That's exactly right. These are Jews too. He's very specific. He said the uncircumcised heart. That could be applicable anyone. Women, Jews, non-Jews, anyone. And highlighting that aspect is very significant, because what was the problem? The problem is that, let's put it in modern language, they were caught up in the technicalities. In the second temple, by the way, it's going to be much worse. It was about the technicalities. Oh, you're Jewish, you're in. I don't care if you're wicked. I don't care if you don't believe. I don't care if you're the most horrible person. You're not Jewish, you're out. Even if you're righteous. That was the problem. God comes here and says, you guys got it wrong. Yes, we have our, let's call it relationship with God, whatever that means, okay? That's not our topic today. But anyone who has the right mindset, anyone who wants truly to pray, anyone who wants to follow those ways, anyone who wants to bring a sacrifice because he wants to get closer to God, God says, as long as they have the right heart, what matters what's inside, then welcome. They were caught up in the technicalities. God says, you got to think bigger. Okay? Unfortunately, it's still applied today. How many times we're caught, we're talking about halakha, I don't want to talk about that too much because it's depressing, but how many times we are like obsessed with the minutiae and the details of halakha rather than to, and sometimes making horrible decisions. By the way, I'm saying like us as rabbis that give answers sometimes, because we ignore the concept. We ignore what's behind that, what's going on.
But the rabbis recognized it long. I mean, the Talmudists recognized it long ago because
they did. But I'm saying, like, even today, we're sometimes caught up with
we lost this kind of view.
I have a friend here in the congregation. I'm not going to say name. Very witty guy that says that Orthodoxy emphasizes the oi, and the Reform, unfortunately, forgot. Oh, no. Orthodoxy, we forgot about the joy and we emphasize the oi. Reform movement forgot about the oi and deal only with the joy. To some extent, there's truth to that. Yes, there is a lot. We are obsessed with technicality. Obsessed. And mechanism and minutiae and details of halachot and all that kind of stuff. We are obsessed with that. And guess what? Many times we forget about what's behind that. Why even we're doing it? And by the way, it's even worse because we reach that point where it's not even about halacha always, it's sometimes even applied to minhagim and stuff that we can be much more lenient. And we alienate definitely our youth. And it's terrible because there's this concept, it's like all or nothing almost, and it's like, it's impossible to do for everybody. It's like, look, the reality is we're all on the spectrum of somewhere. Everybody's challenged with, some people are, the challenge is in one field, the other is a different area. Some is like with whatever you want to call it, and some other is like, we all somewhere on the spectrum, but the perception is that everybody is like, we say everything in the tefillah, and we have kavanah all the time, and we eat kosher to the highest level all the time, and nobody, of course, ever violates Shabbat in the tiniest way, and like it's sometimes it's impossible. It's too much, especially for young people. And nobody talks about this idea that everybody's challenged Everybody has challenges in this idea of, yes, we strive, we want to be better in every aspect. But recognizing that, it's not all or nothing. It's not. And we send that message to our kids. And then when a kid fails once, and they say, you know what, I failed. It's too much for me. Forget it. I move on. That's not. I can't. I'm not strong enough. I'm too weak. I can't. It's too much. Like the whole thing. That's not the right approach. Absolutely. Do whatever you want. Just take whatever you want. No. That's also wrong. I'm saying you need to have this trajectory that we're doing our best in every aspect. But we also, at the same time, need to recognize the fact that not everybody is perfect all the time. Who can actually look at the mirror and say, I'm perfect all the time? I can't.
Rabbi that was this past weekend once at Shabbat, I don't know if he was there. He actually spoke about Rabbi Sachs that he didn't want people to put him up on a pedestal, that he was always right, that he never made a mistake. So.
Even Moshe made mistakes.
Correct. But I'm not talking about mistakes. Mistakes is, making mistakes is human. Question, what do you do with that later on? And how you continue. There's a very simple halakha. I don't want to go, I can talk about that hours. There's a very simple halakha. Let's assume, next week, no. Next a week from Friday is going to be Asara B'Tevet, right? It's going to be fast day. Let's assume that somebody by mistake forgot it was Asara B'Tevet or whatever, I don't know, whatever, ate or drank, okay? Happens. You woke up in the morning, you didn't realize it's a fast day. You had your coffee, then you look at the calendar, so, oh my God, today, whatever, okay? What do you say? Well, I already broke it, so that's it. I'm good. Continue eating like the rest of the day. The halacha is actually no. Okay, it happened. You're going to fast from here. Yes.
You really don't take your coffee before the thing.
So
Most people say they want to tea first, but they forget.
It's this approach of all or nothing is not going to get us anywhere.
The problem of the spilled milk.
That's a little bit different.
In a way.
Spilled milk. Like, Batel B'Shishim and Ta'arobot. That's different. But this idea of all or nothing is not going to get us anywhere. And this is, by the way, one of the biggest challenges that we have today, I think, in the Orthodox world. One of the biggest challenges. By the way, it happens a lot with, in yeshivot. I have a good friend in Israel that he's involved with, he's a teacher. And he's also dealing with a lot of questions that especially teenagers come, and it's just unbelievable. And it's so easy to turn them off from the whole thing. And you need to be so sensitive, and unfortunately, we're doing a horrible job. Yes, Dawn.
Thank you, Rabbi. Do you think it's fair to say in general that an avera does not cancel out a mitzvah? Like talking about people getting discouraged, if they miss a fast accidentally or whatever, and just to like pick yourself up and go from there.
Absolutely. There is no such a thing that avera cancels the mitzvah. Okay, that's not true. Each avera is avera. Each mitzvah, it's a mitzvah, and the only one who knows the math is him.
Yeah.
We don't even know what it means. Okay, so to say like, oh, this one worth 5 coins and this one worth 5 coins, and therefore they cancel each other, or this one is 10 coins and this one is 5, and so it's better. Nobody, it's like it's rubbish. And definitely the Jewish way is, okay, everybody is in a journey. Everybody has a journey. And there are stops in the journey. Sometimes you fall. Keep trying, keep going. You know what's really, really important? Much more important than the destination is to stay in the journey. To stay on your path is more important than the destination. Guess what? I'll tell you another secret. Today's destination is not tomorrow's destination. There is no such a thing as that I reached, that point in my life that I don't need to strive for more. There is no such a thing. The more you learn, the more you know less. Every time you conquer a new peak, you know that there's a new one tomorrow. It's in our lives, and definitely when we talk about spiritual life. And there's a reason for that.
But it comes with pain, as you say.
Sometimes it comes with pain, sometimes it comes with joy. But the point is, there's a reason why that destination is always gonna. Because then what? There's no such a thing as being perfect. That's one of the fundamental ideas of Judaism. Nobody's perfect. Everybody's going to make mistakes. That's one of the definitions, the differences between us and God. God is the only one who's perfect. So we are destined to make bad choices. We're destined to make mistakes, and staying on the path is the most important thing. That is fine, but as long as you stay on the path and you don't you're not discouraged from falling once in a while, then you're on the right path, whatever that path is. They should. Obviously, but that's, as I said, it's not for us. We don't know all that cheshbon. We don't know all that calculation. God is the only one who knows that. And we need to really, with really being modest about it. Everybody is on the spectrum somewhere. Everybody's on the spectrum. I don't care who you are. You could be even the most righteous person in the world. You're still in the spectrum. Nobody's perfect. Only God. Yes. Yeah.
Try to explain exactly what you said about the path and what is the right path, how to fall and fail and get up.
Absolutely. There's tons of literature about that. Tons. I'm not giving you anything, new. It's not mine. I'm good, but not that good. I learned that also. Okay. So, going back to here, it's the people who have uncircumcised heart, obviously metaphorically. That's the problem. Bringing them into the temple. That's the problem, whether they're Jews or not. That's the violation of the covenant with God. Okay. Now, if you remember, he does talk about this idea of giving positions to those people who are not worthy, right? Arelei lev. Who's going to take those positions in the temple, in the future temple? Well, let's take a look. Verses 10 through 14. No, you'll see this is going in more technical way. You'll see. כי אם הלוויים אשר רחקו מעלי בתאות ישראל אשר טעו מעלי אחרי גילוליהם ונשאו עוונם והיו במקדשים משרתים פקודות על שערי הבית ומשרתים את הבית המה ישחטו את העולה ואת הזבח לעם והמה יעמדו לפניהם לשרתם יען אשר ישרתו אותם לפני גילוליהם והיו לבית ישראל למכשול עוון על כן נשאתי ידי עליהם נאום אדוני אלוהים ונשאו עוונם ולא ייגשו אליי לכהן לי ולגשת על כל קודשי אל קודשי הקודשים, ונשאו כלימתם בתועבותם אשר עשו, ונתתי אותם שומרי משמרת הבית, לכל עבודתו ולכל אשר יעשה בו. In English, I'm starting Pasuk, verse 10. But those Levites, here we go. This is to your question. The Levites who distanced themselves from me during Israel's straying, when they strayed from me after their idols, they shall bear their iniquity. They may be attendants in my sanctuary, responsible for the gates of the temple, serving the temple. They may slaughter the burnt offering and feast offering of the people, and they may stand before them to serve them. But because they ministered to the people before their idols, and they became a stumbling block of iniquity for the house of Israel, therefore I have raised my hand against them, the word of the Lord Hashem, and they shall bear their iniquity. They shall not approach me to serve me, or to approach my holy places, to the holy holies of holies, but they shall bear their shame and their abominations that they have committed. Yet I will make them guardians of the charge of Israel for all its service and for everything that is done in it. Okay, pretty confusing. Let's figure out what's going on here. The status of the Leviim, the Levites, is complex. On one end, they are accused for drifting away from God, right? Worshipping idols, all that kind of stuff, and therefore they need to pay. V'nasu avonam. However, they are appointed to serve in the temple as those who are in charge of the gates and to slaughter the korbanot for the people. Very unusual. So what is going on here? Are they punished, or are they rewarded, or what is going on here? So it seems that
they were corrupt.
Yeah, I know, but they still appointed to the temple to work in the temple. So there's got to be something there.
A livelihood other than that.
Yeah. It seems that they lost of their status. How you say, what's the, yes, thank you, demoted.
They were
Because
not
of their sin.
That's the problem. They still continue doing it.
Hold on, you'll see in a second. So they're demoted, and from this point, they're all going to do the works that are less important, guarding and whatever, that kind of stuff. However, what's the problem with that theory? It seems from the Torah that that's exactly the job that was originally designed or given to the Levim. So what is going on here? So if we look at the whole story in the book of Numbers, we'll see a couple of things. First of all, the process of bringing korbanot originally was supposed to be given only to the Kohanim. Okay? Blah, 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 it's all about the Kohanim. Kohanim are the only ones who are allowed to deal with all that stuff, not the Levim. So what is the chidush? What is the novelty? What is this? What are they trying to tell me now? That they sinned, and lo yikshu elai lechahen li. They're not going to approach me, God, to serve. Why this is presented as a punishment for their iniquities? So in order to understand that, we have to delve into the Torah and to fully understand the status of the Levim. Okay? It's complex. Let's try to crunch it. Okay, we're going to go to the beginning. Where is it? I'm not talking about Levi, like the son, as Yaakov. I'm talking about already like fast forward. right, to the times of the temple. We're already a nation. We're in, okay. What happens? What's the first incident that we hear about the Levim?
Shem.
What?
Shem.
No. That's not the tribe of Levi. That's Levi, the individual. I said we're going to fast forward that. We're not going to deal with that. We're going to talk about already the time of the desert, after Yetziat Mitzrayim. The golden calf. It's the golden calf. Right. After the sin of the golden calf, Moshe says, Mi Lashem Elai. Who is with me? And they are the only ones who answer that call. And what are supposed to be doing at that time? שימו איש חרבו על ירחו, עברו, שובו ושובו משער לשער במחנה, והרגו איש אחיו, ואיש את רעהו ואיש את קרובו. They need to take their sword and start killing people. Anyone who participated in the sin of the golden calf. Nobody wanted to do that, except for Shevet Levi. So, okay, we're in postmodernist world, and we can explain it from a psychological, it's, whatever. Remember, like their ancestor, this is the story that Shoshana is talking about, Shechem, right? Right? So Levi is the one who goes and like kills the city of the people of Shechem because Shechem ben Hamor raped his sister Dinah. Okay, so you can whatever analyze it, whatever. Okay, we're gonna stay with the pshat. Moshe has a call. Mi Lashem Elai. Who's gonna go with me? Who's gonna answer the call from God to deal with this acute situation of the golden calf? Shevet Levi is the one that answered the call. Absolutely. Correct. Yes. And after that, what does Moshe tell them? Mil'u yedechem hayom ladonai. Okay, that's interesting. Mil'u yedechem hayom ladonai, and then because of that, you're going to get a bracha. Milu yadechem, right? Milu yad, that term is what? Is assuming a position, specifically in this context of kehuna, of priesthood. Shevet Levi, like for example, we had in the Shivat Yemei Miluim. Right? It's the same, Miluim, it's the same root, right? Shivat Yemei Miluim are the 7 days of preparations before the inauguration of the Mishkan.
Oh, Aleph in the Milui.
It doesn't matter, it's the same root.
Okay, the same.
What happened there? That was the preparation, and after that, the Kohanim were appointed. Same goes here. After the sin of the golden calf, Mil'u yedechem hayom ladonai. You're going to be given that task of serving God, being let's call it the Kohanim. At that point, there's no differentiation between the Kohanim and the Levim. It's the same tribe. So here, it's the entire tribe that was chosen. Now, it means that every Levi, everyone, Kohen or Levi, doesn't matter, everyone from the tribe of Levi has the right to serve in the temple. And therefore, in Sefer Dvarim, we see it again and again and again and again, that term, HaKohanim HaLeviim. Both Kohanim and Leviim. We're going to finish this like in 2-3 minutes, and then, even though we're not going to finish the chapter today, I just want to finish this idea of the Leviim. Okay? Or HaKohanim B'nei Levi. These terms, we see them in Sefer Dvarim again and again and again. HaKohanim HaLeviim, together. HaKohanim B'nei Levi. Okay? We don't see that in other Chumashim. However, if you look at Chumash Bamidbar, we have a slightly different answer, different picture, something that that's what we are used to, what we learn. That means in the beginning, it was the Kohanim that were chosen. i.e. the descendants of Aharon, because of Aharon himself. And later on, the rest of the Leviim joined, assisting the Kohanim. Not only that, later on, what happens? They replace because of the sin of the golden calf, they replace the Bechorim. So we have two scenarios. We need to reconcile the two. One scenario says, well, the tribe of Levi was chosen to serve in the Kodesh because they answered the call, Mil Hashem Elai. According to that, it means anyone from that tribe. Kohen, Levi, really doesn't matter. Everybody has the right to serve in the Kodesh. Proof of that, Sefer Dvarim, where you have that term, Kohanim HaLeviim. It's the same thing. The other narrative that we find in Sefer Bamidbar is slightly different. Who was chosen? Aharon HaKohen, because he was special, let's call it, okay? Aharon HaKohen, and then we have the process in which him and his children are chosen as Kohanim to Lesharet B'Kodesh, to serve in the temple. It's only that family, only Aharon. Reminding you, Moshe was from the same tribe, but he was not a Kohen. He was not chosen, right? His kids were not, according to this narrative, right? Their cousins, remember? Elitzaphan, the famous guy, Korach. All those guys, they were not chosen to be Leviim. They were not chosen to be Kohanim, but they were from the tribe of Levi. So the Kohanim are the descendants of Aharon HaKohen only. Everybody else in the family is a Levi. So according to this narrative, the Kohanim were chosen because status or the personality of Aharon, whatever you want to call it. And later on, everybody else, the rest of the tribe, was chosen to assist, but not to be in the same status, but to assist.
Kohen. It was Gan
Kohanim. Okay, so we have, fine. Because who was originally supposed to serve in the temple together with the Kohanim is the Bechorim, the firstborn. You had the sin of the golden calf, and they lost it. The Bechorim lost it, that right to serve in the temple. And because of that, the Leviim were chosen. Okay? Even today, we have remnant for that, right? We do Pityon Bechorot, right? When you have a Bechor, Pityon Aben. And as a Bechor, I can tell you that as a kid, getting up early on Erev Pesach, so you don't have to, right? So there's still like remnants to that. By the way, halachically, there's an interesting custom that we have is when there's Birkat Kohanim Duchaning. Here in Chutz La'aretz, we do it only in Musaf, on the Chagim. In Israel, they do it every day. And when I lived in Israel, it happened more than once that so the Kohanim do Birkat Kohanim, right? They do the Duchaning. Who washes who do the Nitlat Yadayim for them? It's the Leviim. What happens if you don't have a Levi? There are no Leviim. No, the Bechor does that for the Kohen. If there's no Bechorim, then the Kohen does it for another. It's a halacha that not a lot of people know, but yeah. So there's a remnant for the Bechorim status that originally they were supposed to serve in the temple. Okay, so we have this choosing of the Kohanim first, and later on, the Leviim came or chosen to assist the Kohanim. So technically, the Torah, as I said, the two narratives, technically the Torah says you need to be the son of tribe of Levi, but also from the right family, i.e. a descendant of Aaron, in order to really serve in the Kodesh. Let's call it in the more desirable positions. However, from a ideological or educational perspective, the narrative that the Torah presents is anyone from the tribe, obviously, can serve in the Kodesh as long as they are worthy. Okay, these are like, okay. Now, come Yechezkel now in his vision and says, yeah, knows the material.
It's a great stuff.
They went through tests. And you need to be accepted by the others also. Because if you are not such a nice person, the others are not going to agree. By the way, that also has a remnant in Halacha even today. When it comes to Birkat Kohanim, if you have a Kohen, that the congregation doesn't like him, or even there's one person in the congregation that has a dispute with that Kohen. I'm not saying like dispute over like nothing, but like a serious, let's call it like legal matter, then that Kohen probably should not go into Birkat Kohanim. Correct. Or you need to work it out somehow in peaceful way. So all that stuff has like even remnants even today in our practice. Okay, so comes Yechezkel and he basically says, okay, no more. From like in the future temple, Leviim can do only the guarding, all the lower type of jobs, the way it's in Sefer Bamidbar. Why? Because of their sins. What does it mean? Well, he echoes what Sefer Dvarim said. Oh, you had that right, Kohanim Alevim. You lost it. You lost it. Now we understand why there's this bemoaning of the status of the Leviim. Because according to Sefer Dvarim, they were allowed to do all the other stuff, like the Kohanim, but no more. Now, if you remember back to, and that's going to be the last comment, chapter 40 tells us that's not the end of the story. It's not only that we're saying, okay, this is a tribe of Levi. In the beginning, everybody could do, I minimize it. I go only with the Kohanim. Yechezkel says it's only from the Kohanim. I'm going to minimize it even more. It's only the family of Tzadok. Remember that? Kohanim, Bnei Tzadok. Asher shamru et mishmarti. They were the only ones who were loyal to me, God says. And therefore, they're the only ones who are going to serve in the temple. Let's call it in the more desirable part.
When was this loyalty established?
That's chapter 40.
No. What was the
Throughout the times of the temple, probably in the last couple of generations of when the temple was still standing.
Okay.
That family stayed loyal to God. So now, when Yechezkel, we're talking about a couple of years after destruction of the temple, and he's talking about the future temple, he says, it's not all the Leviim, it's not even all the Kohanim, it's going to be only the family of Tzadok. They prove themselves to be worthy, and they will, in the future temple, will serve me. Everybody else is going to be demoted. They're going to do jobs because Yechezkel doesn't go against the Torah, but because of their sins, they're going to be doing other jobs, which continues that narrative or that perspective that we started talking about a couple of weeks ago, that it's not your status, not what you were born to, what family, all that kind of stuff that matters. It's your actions. So, yes, Shevet Levi was chosen, but guess what? You guys, Leviim, you screwed up. So you lose that right. Guess what? You Kohanim also screwed up. So you lose that right. Who really stay there? The family of Tzadok. Why? They stayed on the right path. So we see that educational, we see that narrative goes everywhere. It's not completely like we're like where we are now, more than 2,000 years later, that it's forget about status altogether, where you come. I mean, you can't do revolutions in, so quickly. But yeah, Shevet Levi, I get it. I recognize you have status, special status. I get it, all that kind of stuff. But you know what? It's not automatic. You need to earn that right. That's the message, and it's happening. We talked about, and it's going to come again and again and again. It's the Nasi, it's the Davidic dynasty, it's the Kohanim, it's everything. Okay?
I have a problem only with the tzadok. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
For me, Tzdukim and Pushim were at one time.
No, that's second temple.
That's why I don't understand why it's made tzadok.
I don't think there's any connection.
But when the Tzdukim, the one that had the Kuna at the end of the temple.
You know how many people are called Kohen also in the Jewish people?
Yeah, no. That's something. No, but
you know what? Shoshana, I didn't delve into that. Maybe that Tzdukim originated or called themselves after Tzadok.
Is the basis that they are the
maybe. It's a question for research for you. I don't know. I think so too.
I don't know.
Who knows? Okay. No, and I said before that, we don't really care about that. Just something, there's a halachic principle that I'm trying to make it relevant. That determines that our decision is what counts. Okay, it goes back to okay, you remember what happened here like a couple of years ago? We were like new in town, so we kind of like Doheny meat.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody remember that. Okay, good. I got a good example. You remember what happens? Because I remember like all the rabbis came here to Rabbi Top's office and they had like a whole discussion.
And it happened again. And it happened again with the same people.
This I don't know. But so the psak was very unusual. Remember? The psak was all the meat that you buy and you're still allowed to buy until certain hour, that was like 3 p.m. or something like that. Correct.
Whatever you bought before that time, you could use.
Right. Okay. And after that is not kosher. So now the logic says it's the same meat. They didn't have a shipment in between. So what is going on? How come this piece of meat is not kosher and this piece of meat is kosher? Now, if you're going to look at that through, if we had some sort of a lab to determine genetically or whatever, you're going to see that probably the two pieces of meat came from the same cow. So how come one is kosher and one is not kosher? It's the same shochet, the same circumstances, the same. I call the meta halachic principle determines meaning we, people, rabbis, whoever has the authority to say, this is it. So it really doesn't matter if I have the gene to be a Kohen or not. What matters is my acceptance, me, people, as Kohen. We have a halacha that says, mishpacha nitmea nitmea. In the laws of gerut, in the laws of conversion, we have a concept that says that a family that we establish, we know, we recognize as Jewish, they're Jewish. Even if somebody is going to come now and going to say, I can prove that the great-great-great-great-grandmother, and it's all like, mother of mother of mother of mother of mother, she was not Jewish, and therefore now 5, 6, 7, 8 generations later, and therefore they're not Jewish, and no, we don't listen to that. It's our decision. We accepted them. We as a society, as a community, we accepted them as Jewish, and therefore they're Jewish. Doesn't matter if genetically, or you're going to find some sort of a document from 5 generations ago that's going to show that. Same goes for that piece of meat. Because I, the rabbi, decided that from that point on it's not kosher, then it's not kosher. It really doesn't matter if it came from the same cow and cut at the same time. And okay, so it's not about the how you call it. It's not a minhag.
that once it's been carried down from generation to generation to generation, it almost becomes like a law, meaning that it's been carried down, it doesn't, we don't.
No, that's the establishment of a, that's it's a little bit different. This is the authority that the rabbis have. Okay? And even if it's like biologically, okay, one of my favorite stories is what's his name? The rabbi used to be in Ramaz.
Oh, from KJ.
From KJ. Luxtin. One of my favorite stories is from Rabbi Luxin. Rabbi Luxin told the following story. When he was a young rabbi, it's like basically in training by his father, Joseph Luxin. One day, a poor woman comes and, we're talking about like in the 20s, I think in the 20s, 30s, maybe 40s, comes and she's, because Rabbi Luxin is already 93 himself. So we're talking about when his father. And she came to him with a chicken. And she said, like, the shochet did, whatever. She had a question, is it kosher or not? And he said to her, looks at that and he said, no, it's not. Said like a month later or so, whatever, another lady comes. Same case. Is this kosher? And he said, yes, it's kosher. And he said, I almost fell. Like, how it's possible? My father, the same issue, told one is kosher, one is not kosher. It's exactly the same case. And he was, like he said, like as a young rabbi, like he was about to explode and say something. And his father said to him, shut up. And after that lady left, his father said, you don't know what's the story at home. In order to paskin, you need to know the first lady, she could afford another chicken. The second lady cannot afford another chicken. Yeah. And he said it. Absolutely. So whether the shochet did that or did that, technically it's the same thing. It's the ruling of the rabbi that defines it as kosher or not kosher. It's the ruling of the community, whether we accept them as kohanim or not, that defines whether they're kohanim or not, regardless to that gene. It's the ruling of the rabbi that defines that piece of meat as kosher or not, whether it came from the same cow, same shelf, the same whatever. Okay? That is the principle here.
So that's where you are.
Yes.
I'm sure that Doheny kosher had machmirim who didn't take any meat anymore.
That's their perspective.
It's not disrespect to the rabbi.
We never did because we yeah. Anyway, yes, Maxine. Mm-hmm. Yes.
And there was a strike. And she said to them, what do you think?
Right.
He looked at the statement and he said, farms, what makes
Oh, there's a lot of issues. Like sometimes you can see the stuff before the shechita, before you slaughter the chicken. Sometimes you discover the stuff only after. Like when you open the chicken, there's like all issues. Listen, my what? Yeah, but there's also in chicken, there's like in a certain parts of, I don't know, I didn't learn that stuff in depth, but no. But in today's reality, we have glad kosher, also dairy. So why not? By the way, I want to tell you something. My wife's grandfather, who lived here in town and was a shochet here for 50 years in Boyle Heights and later on here in Fairfax, Oh my God, the stories that he had. Oh my God. I don't know.
And you know, the story, my
Yeah.
father's phone, it's grandma's
Next week, same time, same place. Yes.
generation. I mean, is he really direct?
Who knows? Who knows? Well, that's exactly what Maxine says. You know, there's the gene, there's a genetic test. I said, okay, that's nice, but it really doesn't. No, because it's only the males. It's only the males. What's interesting is, you know, Rifki, there was a, and that's documented actually, and that's documented that there were families, especially like in Morocco and Iraq, and also, by the way, in Ashkenaz as well, that bought their status as Kohanim. It's documented. We know of families that actually were. Welcome to Judaism 101. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Okay, we're gonna continue. We're gonna continue about slaughtering. That's gonna be next week. We're gonna continue from slaughtering. Okay. Enjoy the rest of Hanukkah, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me just end this.
Yeah, that's okay.
And